The missing persons reports landed on Agent Marcus Bellwether's desk like accumulating snowdrifts, each one a chilling echo of the last. Young faces stared out from the files, vibrant, full of potential, all between 18 and 25. College students vanishing mid-semester, aspiring artists disappearing after accepting exclusive retreats, young tech prodigies gone after winning dubious innovation grants. The pattern was sickeningly clear. Bright futures extinguished, lured away by offers that glittered like fool's gold. Maria Ramirez's voice trembled over the phone line, weaving a narrative Bellwether now knew by heart. Her daughter, Chloe, a promising biochemistry major, had won an all-expenses-paid symposium at a remote research collective called the Ethelberg Institute. She was so excited, Agent Bellwether, Maria sobbed. She packed her bags, talked about networking, about the future. And now, nothing. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. It's been 3 weeks. Bellwether traced the digital breadcrumbs. The Ethelberg Institute, like dozens of other ephemeral organizations targeting the young and ambitious, operated through sleek, invitation-only web portals. They promised opportunity, luxury, advancement. They delivered silence. He cross-referenced transport manifests, flight logs, all dead ends, expertly scrubbed or routed through shell companies. But one freight contractor, flagged for irregularities in a previous case, pinged a remote airstrip deep in the sparsely populated mountain ranges of the West. It was a thread, thin but tangible. Following that thread led Bellwether on a tense, multi-day journey, culminating in a high-altitude valley, shielded by imposing peaks. Nestled within was a town, impossibly pristine, not marked on any conventional map. Welcome signs proclaimed it Ethelberg Meadows, where potential blossoms. It looked less like a research institute and more like a hyper-exclusive five-star resort town. Gleaming white structures curved elegantly against manicured lawns. Silent electric vehicles glided along spotless streets, and the air hummed with a low, almost imperceptible thrum. Posing as a logistics consultant, following up on a lost shipment, Bellwether gained temporary access. He knew he had to use this opportunity to look for Chloe, even if the initial interactions hadn't yielded any leads. He started by visiting the town's central areas, observing the seemingly carefree young residents as they moved through the meticulously clean streets. He checked the local shops, the charming cafes, and even the manicured parks, subtly showing Chloe's picture whenever an opportunity arose. The response was consistently the same: polite but blank stares, no recognition whatsoever. It was as if she was a ghost in this vibrant, youthful town. He ventured towards what appeared to be community centers and recreational facilities, hoping to find some trace of her interests or activities. Each location was filled with young, healthy individuals engaged in leisure activities, their laughter echoing in the sterile air. But none recognized Chloe. The pervasive youthfulness and the unsettling uniformity of their apparent happiness made his search feel increasingly futile and deeply strange. Finally, he found Chloe in a stunning villa, sunlight streaming through panoramic windows that showcased breathtaking mountain views. She was laughing, a bright, carefree sound, as she chatted with another young woman by a sparkling infinity pool. Her clothes were expensive, designer perhaps, and she moved with an air of effortless grace. The villa itself was opulent, filled with modern art and luxurious furnishings, a far cry from a student's humble accommodations. Chloe looked healthy, radiant even, a picture of youthful bliss in an idyllic setting. This wasn't the distraught, missing student her mother described. When Bellwether cautiously approached, mentioning her mother's concern, a flicker of confusion crossed Chloe's youthful face before being quickly replaced by a polite, almost rehearsed smile. "My mother worries too much," she said smoothly, her eyes lacking any real recognition or concern. "I'm perfectly happy here." There was a subtle wrongness to her tone, a disconnect between her words and the vacant quality in her gaze. Bellwether left the villa deeply unsettled. He decided to grab a coffee at a small cafe on the impossibly clean main street, hoping to collect his thoughts. As he sat down at a table, he noticed a young man sitting nearby. There was something vaguely familiar about him. Bellwether subtly studied his features, and then it hit him. It was Daniel Hayes, a young man from a missing persons file he'd reviewed. Daniel had vanished almost a year prior. Another bright college student who had accepted a seemingly prestigious invitation to a remote institute. Seeing him here, looking remarkably well, but with the same unsettlingly vacant cheerfulness he'd observed in Chloe and the other residents, sent a jolt of cold dread through Bellwether. He was about to try and speak to Daniel when two imposing figures, dressed in identical black suits, approached his table with swift, purposeful strides. One of them placed a large hand firmly on Bellwether's shoulder. The other leaned in, his expression stern and his voice low. "Your time here is over," he stated flatly. "You have 5 minutes to leave Ethelberg Meadows." Understanding the implicit threat and the futility of resistance, Bellwether didn't argue. He stood up, the grip on his shoulder unwavering until he began to move away. The two men in black watched him intently as he left the cafe and headed towards his vehicle. As he walked, he descended a short flight of outdoor steps, and a breathtaking panorama opened up before him. The entire town seemed to stretch out beneath him, a pristine collection of elegant buildings nestled in a valley, with the majestic peaks of distant mountains painting a stunning backdrop against the clear sky. His thoughts raced. All so young, so happy, everything so perfect. A shiver ran down his spine. This is very weird. The beauty was undeniable, but now it felt like a carefully constructed illusion, a gilded cage hiding something deeply unsettling. The image of Daniel Hayes' vacant smile, so similar to Chloe's, and the abrupt, forceful expulsion solidified the sinister feeling he had about this place. Back at headquarters, Bellwether recounted the bizarre scene to his team. He described the unsettling youthfulness of the residents, Chloe's vacant demeanor, the chilling recognition of Daniel Hayes, and the swift, forceful way he'd been ejected. Nothing made complete sense. The rumored perfection of that town, a haven where the wealthy vanished without a trace after settling within its borders, juxtaposed with the missing young people and the strange sense of something deeply wrong, left him with more questions than answers. As a seasoned agent, you learn to navigate the predictable currents of crime. Motive, opportunity, means. These are the familiar stars you steer by in the darkest investigations. But then a case like Elias Thorne's lands on your desk, and those celestial guides vanish behind an unsettling fog. It began with a standard missing person report. Elias Thorne, an experienced hiker in his mid-40s, a man known for his meticulous planning, had vanished into the sprawling, ancient Blackwood National Forest. This place, the size of a small state, possessed a severe, indifferent beauty, a labyrinth of dense pines, jagged ridges, and shadowy canyons that swallowed the sun whole. Elias had diligently checked in at the ranger station, outlining a challenging yet manageable solo trek. 3 weeks had passed since he was due back. Local search and rescue, a team intimately familiar with the woods, had conducted their initial sweep. They were thorough, yet they found absolutely nothing. No sign of a stumble, no trace of a predator, no abandoned camp, no discarded gear. It was as if the earth itself had simply opened up and swallowed him whole. Given the forest's federal status and the utter lack of clues, the case landed squarely in our jurisdiction. Interstate missing persons, potential foul play. I took point. My team and I established a command post, a flimsy island of temporary order against the timeless backdrop of ancient trees. We meticulously reviewed the initial reports. Elias Thorne, no known enemies, a stable life, a loving family. The question echoed, why vanish? We amplified the search. Canine units, aerial thermal imaging, agents skilled in wilderness tracking. We carved the forest into grids, consulted with geologists about hidden sinkholes or forgotten caves. Our approach was systematic, by the book, but the Blackwood remained stubbornly indifferent. Days bled into a week. The canines, usually paragons of reliability, would lock onto a scent for a fleeting 100 yards, perhaps 2, then abruptly stop, their whines laced with confusion, their gazes fixed on some unseen barrier. We'd meticulously retrace their steps, finding nothing. No scuffed earth, no broken branches, no whisper of a struggle, not even the faintest indication of a pause. Just the abrupt termination of a trail. Then the whispers started. Locals, their faces etched with the wisdom and wariness of those living on the fringes of the Blackwood, spoke of strange occurrences. Flickering lights dancing where no trails existed, unsettling sounds that defied earthly classification. Tales of those who ventured in and returned, changed, their eyes holding a distant, unsettling light, or those who never returned at all, becoming silent footnotes in the forest's long history. The park ranger, a man grounded in practicality, initially dismissed these accounts as folklore, the product of an overactive imagination in the face of the wood's oppressive silence. Yet, even his pragmatic demeanor seemed to crack around the edges, a flicker of unease in his eyes. He'd mentioned that folks around town had been seeing odd things in the sky lately, swift, silent lights moving in patterns that defied any known aircraft. He couldn't explain it, just a worried furrow in his brow as the spoke of it. Then came the first anomaly. 5 miles off Elias's planned route, nestled within a small, rocky clearing unmarked on any of our maps, a ground team stumbled upon something. A backpack. Elias's backpack. But it wasn't discarded, wasn't torn. It sat upright against a weathered stone, its zippers neatly closed. Inside, everything was meticulously organized. A water filter, an untouched first aid kit, ample food supplies. His satellite phone lay there, battery full. Yet the call log remained blank for the preceding 3 weeks. The weight of the calm, serious approach began to feel insufficient. We widened the search perimeter around the backpack's location. A few days later, 2 miles further into the dense woods, near a choked-off stream, another team unearthed something else. Elias's hiking boots, positioned side by side, their laces neatly tucked inside. It was as if he had simply stepped out of them and vanished into thin air. The soft earth nearby should have held his footprints, but there were none. Just the boots, resting in the damp mud. A palpable unease settled over the team, a chilling blend of frustration and something akin to dread. These weren't clues pointing to a conventional struggle or accident. They carried a disturbing weight, feeling symbolic, like fragments of a message written in a language we couldn't decipher. We consulted with the BAU, ran psychological profiles. Could this be a staged disappearance? Unlikely, given Elias's stable life. Foul play? Possible. Yet where was the body? The telltale signs of violence. Why this bizarre, almost ritualistic arrangement of his belongings? We intensified our interviews with the longtime residents, the families whose roots were tangled deep within the soil surrounding the Blackwood. Their whispers grew louder, tinged with an ancient fear. They spoke of the forest's deep creepiness, of stones scattered throughout the area that felt wrong, their surfaces covered in unsettling patterns that seemed to shift in the periphery. They recounted tales passed down through generations, warnings about venturing too far into the woods, about the things that dwelled beyond human comprehension. Then came the final, most unsettling discovery. High on a sheer rock face, overlooking a dizzying canyon, in a location requiring climbing gear, Elias hadn't possessed, an aerial surveillance drone captured an image, a symbol, freshly etched into the stone. Not the crude markings of graffiti, not personal initials. A complex network of interconnected lines and perfect circles, undeniably intricate. We dispatched a climbing team. They confirmed its recent creation. No other markings, no sign of anyone having lingered. Just the symbol staring out over the vast, silent expanse of the forest. We meticulously photographed it, forwarded the images to every expert we could find. No known language, no recognized cult affiliations in the region, no earthly explanation. It was a clue that offered no direction, only plunging us deeper into a bewildering abyss. The search inevitably reached its limits. Resources dwindled. Hope evaporated like morning mist. After 6 long weeks, the difficult decision was made. The active search for Elias Thorne was suspended. The carefully crafted press releases spoke of exhausted search efforts and a case that remains open. Driving away, I glanced back at the imposing tree line. The forest seemed to have deepened, grown darker, more menacing than when we had arrived. The case wasn't closed. It was merely shelved. Elias Thorne remained out there, somewhere within the silent embrace of the Blackwood, and a chilling certainty settled within me. Some mysteries lack earthly anchors, and some trails lead not to answers, but to the precipice of the incomprehensible. Weeks later, an old man who lived in a weathered cabin on the very edge of town sought me out. His eyes, the color of faded denim, held a profound sadness. He told a story. When days turned into weeks, then months, and everyone had given them up for lost, she had returned. He leaned closer, his voice a low, gravelly whisper. They found her stumbling out of the woods, near those strange stones you city folk are always asking about. She was different. Her eyes darted around like she didn't recognize anything. When they asked her what happened, her words, they didn't make sense. I asked if it might be possible to speak with her. The old man's gaze dropped to the worn wooden floor of his porch, a heavy silence filling the space between us. Why? I pressed gently. He finally looked up, his eyes filled with a profound weariness. Not possible, Agent. She continued down that path. Even after she was back, she talked of tunnels that twisted and turned, of seeing the earth hanging in the blackness and a bubble around it, like something alive as I understood it. She said, "We are already controlled, Agent, controlled by something vast, something we can't even begin to imagine." He paused, his gaze drifting towards the distant tree line. She kept saying they would come soon. They would come here, to our town. That's where it will start. His gaze locked onto mine, a stark warning in their depths. She ended her own life not long after, about 15 years ago now. The assignment arrived with a lack of ceremony, a terse email nestled amongst routine reports. The drive into Brightwood was disquieting. The sky hung oppressively low and gray, casting a perpetual twilight over the valley. The town itself was nestled within the hills. The air felt heavy, charged with an unspoken tension. As Reyes guided her car onto the seemingly deserted main street, an unnerving silence descended. The unsettling quiet just beginning to prickle her senses when a figure emerged from shadows. They stood by the road as she slowed, a wide, unwavering smile. Reyes couldn't recall them blinking. "Well now, look what the wind blew in," the person whispered, the cheerful expression unsettling. "Welcome to Brightwood." A prickle of unease ran down Reyes's spine. "Thank you," she replied evenly, "just passing through, looking for a place to stay." Her mission felt heavier under the stranger's gaze. The smile widened. "Passing through? Most just stay." Briefly, the smile vanished. Eyes narrowed with aggression. "You shouldn't have come here." Then the grin returned. "Welcome, welcome. Always room." Before Reyes could process this, children with pale faces and knowing eyes cautiously approached. A girl with a doll whispered, "Don't listen to him. He's different." As Reyes glanced back, an old woman stood in a window, her wrinkled face and dark eyes fixed on Reyes. A chill snaked down Reyes's spine. The silent stare was deeply unsettling. Deciding to find lodging quickly, Reyes put the car in gear. "Thank you," she said, offering a strained smile to the unblinking figure. "I'll be going now." She found a room, a place as worn as the town. Sleep was elusive. The stranger's smile, aggression, the children's warnings, and the old woman's gaze haunted her. Her mission felt intertwined with dread. Something was wrong in Brightwood. She sat in her rented room by a sputtering fireplace. The low hum she'd noticed upon entering Brightwood was more pronounced. a subtle vibration seeming to emanate from the walls. It burrowed into her awareness, a constant low thrum that made her teeth ache. She rose, muscles stiff. Gathering information was key. The children seemed to understand the town's atmosphere. As she prepared to leave, a faint scratching came from the window. Reyes froze, hand near her sidearm. She peered through the grimy glass. Outside, the gray sky. Nothing. Just the wind and the distant hum. Dismissing it as nerves, she headed downstairs. The inn's common room was deserted. A flickering lamp cast long shadows. Heavy silence, broken only by a ticking clock. The town felt like it held its breath. Stepping onto the main street, Reyes scanned her surroundings and followed it. She wanted to explore. The buildings gave way to a small lake, its still surface reflecting the gray sky. Rocky ledges lined the shore. The forest stood as a dense barrier of emerald foliage. Wooded giants lined the water, their crowns casting shadows. The air smelled of damp earth. Then she saw them. The same children huddled near the water, their faces etched with fear and resignation. They spotted her and cautiously approached. "You're still here," the girl with the doll whispered. "I am," Reyes replied, crouching. "I wanted to ask you more about how everyone's been." The children exchanged glances. The boy spoke. "Only we truly see. Everything changed. It doesn't affect us. It makes people forget, happy strangely. And sometimes," the girl added, trembling, "it makes them angry." "You said it's been happening?" Reyes asked, her mind racing. The children nodded. "Ever since it came, a few years ago," the boy said, pointing towards the hill. Just then, the smiling figure emerged from an alley, their gaze fixed on Reyes and the children. The children flinched. "Everything all right here?" the figure whispered. The children were silent, apprehensive. Reyes stood, placing herself between them and the smiling figure. The low hum intensified. The unsettling feeling returned, amplified. Her vague mission felt very clear. Suddenly, a low hum vibrated through the ground. Townsfolk froze, their gazes fixed, like her arrival. The children gasped. Then, stillness shattered. Their eyes snapped open, filled with fury. A man swung a shovel. A woman screamed, throwing things. Neighbors attacked neighbors. A searing pain ripped through Reyes's head. She stumbled, vision blurring, and fell. A figure lunged, face contorted with rage, blows raining down. As suddenly as it began, it stopped. The aggressor slumped back, vacant. The pain subsided. Her attacker stared blankly. Gasping, Reyes pushed up, aching. The children emerged, a grim understanding in their eyes. It happened sometimes. A primal urge to flee surged through her. She had to get out of Brightwood. She had to warn someone. As Reyes stumbled up, townsfolk stirred, their vacant expressions shifting to unnatural smiles. The old woman smiled from her porch. Others emerged, their smiles widening, gazes fixed. A peculiar sensation crept over Reyes, a lightness, an urge to smile, thoughts fuzzy. She struggled to recall her mission. Words felt foreign. A fog rolled in. Just then, the girl with the doll darted forward. "You need to go, now, before it gets you too." Reyes knew she had to get to her car, before losing herself. She stumbled back, the smiling townspeople approaching. They moved slowly, deliberately, eyes fixed. She fumbled with keys, hands shaking. Finally, the door unlocked, and she fell into the driver's seat. The engine coughed to life, but as she tried to close the door, they were there. The smiling people crowded her car, faces pressed against the windows, unblinking eyes inches from her face. Hands smudged the glass. A low murmur surrounded the vehicle. Panic seized Reyes. She slammed the door shut and locked it, gasping. They didn't try the doors, but their numbers and relentless joy were terrifying. She pressed the accelerator, the car lurching forward. Some pressed closer, smiles unwavering. Reyes didn't look back, driving down the street. Her vision swam. The lightness intensified. She saw the unblinking woman in the road, swerving violently. She fought the wheel, her mind struggling. She drove on, the smiles receding, but the lightness grew heavier. The hum vibrated within her. The road blurred, vision darkening. The last thing she registered was the gray sky before darkness. Sometime later, a distant glow of headlights appeared in the darkness. A beat-up pickup truck slowed down beside her. A grizzled man's voice. "You all right, miss?" Reyes could only stare, the horror of Brightwood vivid. Reyes could only stare back, her mind still reeling from the horrifying truth of Brightwood.